Hi, my name is Kamar Zachery, and I'm your host for this episode of Niche or Die. Over the past couple of weeks and months, I've had a chance to connect with some of the most fascinating people in the world. Some of them featured in Forbes, Bloomberg, Inc. magazine, work with celebrity clients like Rihanna, Taylor Swift, MTV, and many others. Now, in this particular episode, you're going to hear from Greice Murphy. Greice actually moved here from Brazil a few short years ago, and with no experience, no contacts, she was able to found and build one of the fastest growing companies in the healthcare space right here in America, and was able to sell majority interest for close to $35 million. So it's safe to say she knows exactly what it takes to succeed at a high level. So you definitely want to watch this interview so you can pick up on some of the secrets that she's going to reveal. But more importantly, you're going to get an opportunity to see exactly what what she's got going on today. Hello, Niche or Die community. We have the pleasure of having Greice Murphy on with us today to share some insight on, what is it like to be to come from another country, come here to America, build a very successful business, and be able to sell a majority stake of her business, and meanwhile being able to impact the community and impact the lives of other people along the way of doing that. Greice, it's such a privilege to have you. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So let me ask this, because I want to hear a little bit more about your story and what brought you to America. But before we get into that, what I've learned and what I've recognized over the past couple of years is every time I study very, very successful people that were able to dominate a particular niche, were able to dominate a particular market, there were three things there were three elements to them making that decision. The element number one is, there were certain skills that they already possessed. All right. Or it were skills that they figured they could go learn. Number two was that they were already familiar with a certain industry that they chose. They had a little bit of a background. They kind of understood it. And number three, which I believe is actually the most important, is they recognize the needs and desires of the marketplace. And, when I was reading your story and I was doing my homework on you, you hit a home run on all three of those. And so I wanted to get some insight, not just for the community. Honestly, I do these interviews for selfish reasons. It's because I want to know. The viewers are going to learn, but I actually want to know what skills did you already possess in the beginning of your journey as an entrepreneur?
Resilience. I think every entrepreneur that aims to be successful, what they choose to do, have to be very, very much resilient, as well as be willing to take responsibility and risk. No one goes into a completely different industry like I did. And by the way, I didn't know the industry. I had to learn from the beginning, which also enables you to develop different muscles that you didn't have. But at the same time, it slows down the growth because the main leader is not an expert in the industry. But that's a different topic for another day that, is definitely something that you early on want to surround yourself with a lot of people that know much more than you do. But resilience, you have to not be afraid to take risk. You have to be a hustler, because the first stage of the business, when you don't have a lot of money to invest in employees or even partners to come along with you, you have to be doing everything. And in today's era is very different than when I started ACP 12 years ago. Today, you have information and education in the palm of your hand like nobody else, right? But you have to be curious. If you're not intellectual curious, then you have a problem. And that's what I tell my employees. I can train you for a skill, but I cannot train you for attitude. So if you don't have the attitude to be curious about what you want to learn, I cannot give you that. So there is a lot of things that comes from childhood, from watching mom and dad really fight hard and work hard, that work ethic that you get at home, like mom and dad working, waking up early. Those things you learn by watching, but you also have to have the desire in you to be something else, to grow, to continue to improve yourself as you grow a company. That's one of the lessons learned that I have, is the leader that you are today is not the leader that the business will need when it gets to a certain level. So if you don't develop yourself fast enough to stay ahead of the game, you will become irrelevant. And you're either going to stop growing or you're going to start decreasing sales or success. So having that mindset of always developing yourself and the others that along the journey with you is probably one of the reasons why I got where I am.
Gosh, resilience. That's
Resilience, yes.
and you're right. You can't teach that.
Cannot.
You can't train someone to have that, and you can't train someone to be intellectually curious. So
right.
that's oh.
Right. As a mother, for who is listening, that's a parent, one of the exercise that you should be doing with your kids to stimulate that curiosity that all kids have, but as they grow, goes away. I always think about when they ask a question back. So that creates that problem solving skills. For an example, why the sky is blue? Why you think it is? Tell me why. And just like I always keep motivating them to answer the questions that they have. As a leader, you want to develop that muscle in your employees, because don't bring me a problem with at least 3 solutions that you already thought through it, because I want to help you to create the muscle and mindset to not just think about what's wrong, but how to solve it. And I'm here to guide you, not to really teach you how to do it, because I rely on you to give me suggestions, so then I can coach you if your suggestions are right or wrong.
That's, that makes sense. I used to get frustrated when my basketball coach would do that. I would just want a simple response. Just give me an answer. Why do I need to do this? And he would ask questions, and he never explained it to me the way you just did, and I didn't realize, I had no idea that that's what was taking place. So that's interesting. Yeah.
So when you're starting the business, that you really are managing yourself, right? You're managing you and your own execution in your deliveries. Then you start hiring people, and as you grow in revenue and grow in employee count, you as a leader have to go from managing your individual contributor to manage the managers, manage the directors, manage the C-levels, manage the VP. And those are completely different types of management. And you have to learn those skills along the way with the growth of your company. And one of the most difficult pieces for entrepreneurs and founders, because we know everything about the business, because we created the business, right, is to develop your employees to be leaders and bite your tongue when you know the answer, but you cannot tell them the answer, because if you say so, they are not going to develop the muscle of problem solving, and they're always going to come to you with every problem without even thinking through before they bring the problems to you. So it's almost like, oh, there is a rock over there. I know what's under the rock, but you don't say that, but just, do you think there is a problem with the rock being there? And you have to bite that tongue and wait for the person to start thinking through what the problem could be under the rock. So to answer your questions, as you develop the skills, as you grow your company, you also have to develop yourself how to manage different types of talent in levels of executives.
Gotcha. So let me ask, where did you get your curiosity for wanting to be an entrepreneur? You know, where did that come from? What was it about being an entrepreneur that led you in that direction?
I think doing something bigger than myself is what led me to be an entrepreneur. I think is impact people positively. If you think about being, an entrepreneur is being able to be a leader, to employ others and influence them as the best as you can, to be the best of themselves. My mom was the only entrepreneur of my family. The rest, they're all dentists. I think 12 or 13 dentists between my brother, my cousins, my dad, my uncles, everybody dentists.
Wow.
And my mama is the entrepreneur, and I watched her literally living every day at 6 o'clock in the morning. She had the cosmeticals brand in the south of Brazil, and she took the risk to basically go part-time as a teacher to grow the franchise. And she was very successful, but I watched her sacrifice a lot of her time with me and my brother because we were young. I was probably 5 and my brother was 6 when she started doing that. She would leave at 6 o'clock in the morning. At 6 o'clock p.m., she would come back. She drove around the state 1 or 2 times, and then she would stay home for an hour and go home and go to our school to teach as a high school teacher at night. So she not just resilience, she was like a doer, and she inspired me to do more and never take no for answer and never stop dreaming. Dreams are possible.
Yes, absolutely. Was it when you moved here from Brazil? Did you already have in mind, exactly what field you wanted to go into, or you did not?
Now I came here as a currency trader. So I went to medical school, then got my MBA in finance, fell in love with the numbers. While I was doing my MBA, there was a company recruiting in Brazil, people that wanted to do currency trading in the United States. So I came here to work for that bank, and I didn't speak English. And I was working 12, 16
like you didn't speak any English, or just
I did not speak in English, but I was working for a Brazilian company trading money with South America. So I did not need to speak English. And I learned English because back then you didn't have a lot of resources online, or it was very costly. I would leave my office. I will never forget, because I left Brazil. It was winter time, and I came here, was about to get cold. So I had basically 1 year full of winter, which I don't like the cold weather. I would leave my office and I would go to 24/7 Walgreens on Roswell Road, and I would be reading labels with my electronic translator pen for hours. So I made friends with the cashier because they saw, here it comes the blonde that wants to learn English, and that's the resource she has. But so I had a big goal to be fluent so I could professionally get where I want to be, and I made it happen one way or the other.
That's so amazing, because most of us, and I can speak for myself, I have all of the resources necessary at my fingertips, and yet I only speak English. I haven't learned, and I don't
curiosity.
I know. I was actually pretty good at it in high school. I took Spanish 3, and my dreams were in Spanish. Like I really embraced it. But guess what? I wasn't in an environment where I had a chance to practice it. So,
Right.
after high school, I never used it. And, with something like that, when you don't use it, you definitely lose it. And so
Yeah.
I was using this app, and I got bored with it. So you've inspired me to, because, to be able to make the impact that you've made, and you came and you didn't even understand the language, and you didn't allow that to be an excuse. And you did everything necessary. You use all of your resources to get familiar with the language and be effective. There are people who grew up in America, they only speak English, but yet their communication is still not effective. So I'm very impressed with that. That's incredible.
People take they don't really value sometimes the how valuable it is to be clear of what you want and take time to think what your goals are. And because they are so busy putting out fires and living the day-to-day life, that there is no planning. And when you're clear of what you want to be and who you want to be, where you want to go, it makes everything else easier. Because then you have the goal and you're aligned towards the future. And I would guarantee, if you were in Mexico with nobody else speaking Spanish, you would obligate yourself to speak Spanish because there is no other option. Right. But on the other side, if you really knew that you wanted to be a Spanish teacher, whatever that may be, will give you the clarity and sometimes the motivation to get there easier.
That's true.
So, one of the things when we started ACP, I didn't know anything about home care. I surrounded myself with consultants that taught me what I needed to do for licensure wise, but then was baptism by fire every day. And what you quickly realize that normally your problems in business is your problems, because the lenses that you see the world is your own lenses. So if your lens is right, you will be able to solve the problems in a right way. For an example, if you are a untrustworthy person, you will surround yourself with the same type of people. If you are trustworthy people, you're only going to hire people that are leaders that are trustworthy. So identify what don't you see right in life, because you may not have that right, and change that first, because that's the main reasons why leaders are successful. Is not how they think, is not the thinking, is how they think, is identifying what is right or wrong about their thoughts and really capitalizing on the right ones.
Gotcha. So let's talk about ACP. I know your purpose was you wanted to raise the quality of home care nursing services, and I'm curious because, like, how did you even recognize that there was a problem? How did you recognize that there was an opportunity in that space?
Well, this is a niche. So Advanced Care Partners serves medically fragile children in their homes with nursing care, but these kids are 95% covered by Medicaid. So it is a very small population in a really high need of service and quality of care. Think about kids that are on ventilator 24/7, that they were born with genetic problems that sometimes they don't get better. So I had the opportunity to get to know a CEO of a company exactly like this in Texas, which opened the door for me to go and take a look on the business and the business model. I fell in love actually with the mission to serve, and mission to really provide care to these kids before I even knew how needed the services were. So I came to Atlanta and hired a consultant to help me to go through the licensure. And then when we started ACP, we went to interview case managers at the hospitals. And very quickly, we understood that this is a population that's extremely underserved. Those are our kids that are born in a very unprivileged way in communities that don't have a lot of support. And mom and dad sometimes are not even there. These kids were left alone, and they're state kids.
Wow.
And you're sometimes the only hope that these kids have throughout the day. So even for knowing that to begin with was already for me enough to make that as a personal mission, to create a company that's not just the employer of choice, but also a place that these families can feel comfortable and rely on.
Gotcha. Wow. That is that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate that that's the way, things are. But that also provided an opportunity for you to come up with the solution. And that's what entrepreneurship is always about, right? It's solving problems.
Right, absolutely.
So let me ask you this: when did you realize, or going into it, did you already know that you would have an opportunity to one day, sell it, or was that something that you kind of learned along the way, and that became an idea later?
Oh no, the idea was never to sell. That was an accident that I put myself through that situation. I did an interview for a reported for M&A reporter, merger and acquisition reporter, and she published my interview as ACP is now taking external capital and considering a sale. So we got bombarded with phone calls from private equities and VCs around the globe trying to buy us. And every time I make a mistake, I always think why and how can I learn from. And my mom always said, your best teacher is your last mistake. So learn from it. And I start taking the calls and I start listening to what they're asking. And I start actually Googling what they're asking, because half of the terminology they were using on the merger and acquisition side, I had no idea what that meant. So I started educating myself what a sale looks like, what different types of sales there is, what type of transactions, what type of private equity, what should I be looking for, what's the real value, enterprise value of a company, how do we calculate EBITDA. So again, being curious, right? You just taking those calls and very, very rapidly, I understood that there were two types of investors. One type was the type of investors that really care about the return of investment. Mm-hmm. And the other type of investors that really care about helping you to build a bigger and better company, then you get your return from. Gotcha. By doing the right thing, you get the returns. So, by this 17th, 18th call from different private equities, you already can identify what type of private equity you want to talk to because of the questions they ask in the beginning of the conversation. It goes. Start making a list, a checklist, start making I did my entire spreadsheet of what should I listen, what should I not, what the questions I should ask, what this means. Everyone had a different tab with a different name of the company I was speaking to. As I threw myself out there, I might as well just learn from.
This is good, and I'm grateful that you're sharing this, because a lot of times, people assume that, when you read the press and you see the newspaper clippings and the magazine features, we assume from the outside looking in, we assume that you would know all of this stuff already. And so the perception is, before I can be in a position to build a successful company, help people, and then possibly make an exit, I need to learn all of this stuff before I get started. And just, hearing from you, it's like you're giving us some hope. It's like we can get started on the vision that we have without having all the answers.
Oh, absolutely. You don't need to have the answer. You have to have the questions. The answers you figure it out. I want people with the right questions because that is where the problem is. People are not asking the right questions. So how can you get the right answers?
Oh gosh. Oh, oh my God. Like had I known this early on in my career, and for most people, you know, life would definitely be different. You know, I don't like to dwell on the past, but hearing things like this, you know, hearing you say, you know, I mean, not many people can say that they actually started a successful business. So let's just check that box. Most people can't even say that they started a successful company. And then the circle gets even smaller of people who can actually say that they were able to sell their company, you know, and impact people, you know, and so, you know, you're a unicorn, you know, it's like, you know, you're a unicorn and you sit in this world that seems like before today's conversation, I would just say this, before today's conversation, it seems so far-fetched for, you know, for the average person to be able to start a business, get help. You know, that sounds a lot more hopeful, getting help, hiring a consultant, asking the right questions. That sounds a little bit more hopeful than knowing everything, you know? And so, yeah, this is incredible. So let me ask this. So now you got me tapping into my intellectual curiosity because now, because now I want to know more. So let me ask, you know, at what point, because you started out with the mindset of changing kids' lives. At what point did you see the opportunity to expand and start supporting and serving adults?
So I had a crying mother calling me because her daughter was aging out of the pediatric Medicaid program. And so it is federal law in the United States that if you have a child that meets a certain level of medical necessity, the government, the state government, shall take care of certain things for you for free. Doesn't matter if you meet Medicaid income level or not. If the child meets the medical criteria, the government pays a company like me to provide care to these kids, which is home care, nursing care, because the child qualifies for. So that's the start. Once the child becomes, when turns 18, for one set of, depending if they are on Social Security or not, but once the child turns 21, they fall off the Medicaid program and they go into the Medicaid waiver. And it's a huge waiver. It's like, think about, it's probably 13,000 individuals versus 2,000 kids. So adults are much bigger waivers. So it's much more disorganized, but there's not a lot of quality providers. So she called me and said, Greice, where do I go from here? And I said, I'm so sorry. I have no idea. So she's like, well, I heard about the waiver. Can you apply for it? And I said, absolutely, I can help. And when I looked into the guidelines to apply to be a provider of adult versus pediatric in a waiver versus a program, is a completely upside down type of business. And I had to learn everything because I had the responsibility of continuity of care to this mom that I really care for. And before even looking at how big the opportunity was, I thought about my responsibility to provide services to that child that is no longer eligible for the pediatric services. So I needed to become a provider of adult services.
Gotcha. Okay. Again, it goes back to helping the children and being able to serve the entire household.
Yeah, and it's a very different business. Think about hiring a pediatric nurse that likes to take care of a baby versus a adult nurse that does not want to take care of a baby. Those are normally completely different professionals. So even for recruiting purposes, I had to learn everything on how to, recruit and attract those type of nurses that before I didn't have to.
Gotcha, gotcha. So you know, you built you found you know ACP back in 2010. Um, you know, you sold it in 2018, correct?
End of 2018, yeah.
And here we are in 2022. What is Greice Murphy up to these days?
Well, a lot. I stepped down as the CEO of the company in June last year. So I stayed as the company's leader until June. So 2.5 years after the sale, I stayed on, and it was time for a transition. It was time for me to handle hand the baby to, someone that it was a professional, also professional CEO, but also someone that could take it to the next level. Building a company has different stages of growth, and in each stage has its own challenges, but also its own beauty. And I thought about, just starting new businesses, being my entrepreneur,
Yeah.
myself. And I had the opportunity. I spoke to the board, and they gave me the freedom to go. And I continue to be the second largest shareholder in the company. So I am on the board of ACP, as well as leading the M&A side of the inorganic growth strategy of the business. So I still pretty involved with the organization because it's my passion to serve, especially the medically fragile community. But also I love to empower and to coach and mentor other entrepreneurs. I wish I had had mentors growing the business. I had more towards the end, which helped me so much. So if I can just expedite their growth from a conversation that I had with, entrepreneurs that have gone through or are going through what I did, to me that is very fulfilling. And I have been spending a lot of time on investing in startup businesses as well as mentoring other young entrepreneurs.
Gotcha. So I want to ask you about that, because what do you look for when you, because I'm pretty sure now, when people find out that you were able to start a successful company and then you're able to sell it, and they want a piece of what you got. They want to be around you because you've got the blueprint, you've got the playbook. So I'm pretty sure people come to you all the time with opportunities. How do what are you looking for when you're determining if it's something that you'll get involved with? What are you looking for?
First, I look at the product. Is there something that the world needs? Because if it is not, then it's already gone because nobody's going to buy it. Then if it is, how can you be different from what's out there already? So is there any uniqueness on this? And the third is, who's behind it? Is it an entrepreneur that really delivers, meaning he or she says, do what she says she's going to do or not? Is she resilient? She's driven? What drives her? Is there money? If it is money, that is not the right answer. Is that the purpose of creating something bigger and better than themselves? That is the answer, because passion is what moves people. Nobody is going to follow a leader or an entrepreneur that's not passionate about what he or she is doing. So you gotta put your heart with your purpose first in order to end up making money. So, I have probably, I would say, average between 3 and 5 good opportunities per week that come across, emails or even other entrepreneurs that want me to be investors. And I have a spreadsheet with some must have or not have, that I run through it so I can do the first filtering before I even talk to the entrepreneur. I do a quick marketing research on, is that needed? What's the competition looks like? What's the landscape for the competitors landscape? What's the price of acquisition per customer? How big can this business become? It's just almost like common sense. If you're building a business, this is what you should be looking for in order to be successful. But also, you gotta quantify success. What is being successful? Is that doing what you love and loving what you do? It is having a full banking account, is having prestige and recognition. What is it for you? Because it can be different things from different people, and you got to understand your why in order to you to do your things in the right way. And so I always ask the entrepreneurs, why are you doing this? What's your main purpose of literally spending time away from your kids, growing a business, sacrificing your time with your spouse or whatever it is that is driving you to do this?
Makes sense. That makes sense. So listen, before I let you go, I'm enjoying this so much, and there's a list of questions that I'm intellectually curious about, and I definitely want to ask, but time is of the essence. So before I let you go, let me ask you, what advice, because you've shared so much insight, what advice would you give for new and existing entrepreneurs who are having a hard time choosing a market to serve? They're having a hard time figuring out, they know they want to be an entrepreneur and they have the why figured out, but they're having some challenges choosing an area to go into. What insight do you have for them?
I would start from, what do they like to do? Because understanding what drives energy in you drives the industry that you want to be in. Do you like tech? Do you like service? Do you like, food industry? What do you like to do? And you close your eyes and you think about the future. What are you doing? And then if they figure out that is in CPG, for an example, that they wanted to build something that doesn't exist, go out there and do a quick research on the market and see if there is products such as that, and study them. Why are they successful? What's missing from them? But also, I think just one advice that was not mentioned here: if you are an entrepreneur that's growing your business and you ever even cross your mind to sell the business, please start to get prepared right now versus when the phone rings and you have an offer, an LOI, and the next day and you're so excited and you let your emotions to drive your actions. Don't do that. Get prepared. It takes 6 to 12 months period to prepare even your financials, to figure out if you're leaving something on the table. Don't be cheap, meaning get some help, call me. I'm more than happy to help you with what you have to have in place in order to be even in a startup position to go to market. Because if you don't do that, you are going to lose at least 25% of your enterprise value for not getting prepared.
Wow.
It is a statistic proof. It is proven that this is how much we're leaving on the table, just not to have taken the time to get organized early on, to one day, even this 3 years from now, one day, if you put your company in the market to sell or get approached by a PE or a VC or even angel investors, be in a position, be prepared before the opportunity comes. That is very important.
Wow. I appreciate that. It makes 25%.
At least it's 25 to 33%. That's the average of money that you basically lost or left on the table because you didn't get help early enough for someone to say, oh, this is wrong, change this from the profit and loss balance sheet because this is an asset you can depreciate. There's things that you don't know what you don't know, and people that have done this for years can spot probably in an hour or two, they can tell you what's right or wrong and come up with a course of correction that will save you a lot of money, time, and headache.
And correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm looking at numbers. You were able to sell your portion of the company for 35 million.
Right.
And so for those who are watching, that's literally, had she not done her due diligence and left money on the table, she's basically saying that she could have left close to $9 million on the table.
Could pay the taxes.
You know? And so I had to do my quick math on my calculator just to make that real. Because, you know, we hear 25% automatically, because, you know, going into the conversation, I knew what you sold your company for. So when you said 25%, it's like, man, that's, you know, if a person sells it, 25% of any amount is a lot. If it was 100,000, 100 million, 25% is a lot. And like you said, you know, don't be cheap, hire the help, bring people in. And that's what I've gathered from you this entire conversation is you were humble enough to recognize that you had your strengths and then you had your areas where you weren't so strong, and you surrounded yourself with people who could bring additional value, and you formed a team. You created a championship team.
Yeah, I think the most of people sometimes they focus on getting better on what they're not good at versus getting excellent what they are good at, and hire the people to do what you're not good at, because that's going to drain your energy anyways if you try to do it, and you're never going to get the best because that's not you. So, you know, give yourself permission to not to be great at everything. That's number one. And really focus where the energy is coming from, because that is what's going to drive value and purpose for the business, and stick to that and surround yourself with people to fill the gaps on the stuff that you may not enjoy doing it. And it's at the end of the day, it can never be about the money. It's about the journey, is about how much have you changed people's lives for the better. Is that what you're looking for? Being an entrepreneur is the, I will tell you that is the bottom line. Never drove to do what I'm doing. It's literally the journey along the way and the people that we touch and the influences that we make that is the reason why we love to do what we do.
Yeah. There you have it. Greice, this has been a pleasure. Like, I've sincerely enjoyed this conversation. Gosh, I know a lot of people are going to be impacted just by the insight that you've had. And I know that's just the tip of the iceberg. Where after this, where can people find you? How can they find you and possibly get in contact with you? Where, you know, if they want to, you know, get some advice, or they want to be a part of any of your programs that you have?
Yeah, I think that the easiest way is I have a website, is greicemurphy.com, but Greice is spelled Greice, is the way it spells in Portuguese in Brazil, Greice Murphy, or even social media, LinkedIn and Instagram. I'm there as Greice Murphy as well. And, you know, just contact me if you need anything. I'm here to help. You know, this is a new era for me that I'm not operating a company. So I'm really, you know, about add value to others, and anything can help, please reach out. I'm here for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Well, Niche community, you've heard it. You've heard it from one of the best of the best. A lot of people out there talk about, you know, building companies and impacting the community, impacting the world. Very, very few people are actually able to execute that. Everybody come up with ideas, and we can steal and borrow ideas. But one thing I've learned is you can't steal or borrow the execution. That's sold separate. So with that being said, I want to appreciate everyone who had an opportunity to tune in today.